Lieutenant Kim Dae-ho straightened his dark blue diplomatic jacket as he made his way through the maze of metal corridors deep in Kepler Station's forgotten sections. The air here was thick and stale, recycled through ancient filters that hummed. With mechanical strain, emergency lighting cast long shadows that danced with each step, creating an eerie atmosphere that would make most beings nervous. But Dae-ho wasn't most beings. He was human. Floating gracefully beside him was his closest companion, Yilneth, whose crystalline body caught the dim light and scattered it into tiny rainbows across the corroded walls. The Velnari's translucent blue form pulsed with soft, bioluminescent patterns that betrayed his anxiety. Unlike the sturdy human beside him, Yilneth's species had evolved on a peaceful garden world where the greatest danger was a sudden rainstorm. "Dae-ho, my friend," Yilneth's voice tinkled like glass chimes in a gentle breeze. "I must ask again. Are you absolutely certain this pathway is secure? The main corridors may take longer, but they have security patrols and emergency beacons." Dae-ho chuckled, his hand unconsciously brushing against the pulse pistol holstered at his hip. After 3 years of friendship, he'd learned to recognize when his alien companion was worried. The Velnari's crystalline formations would shift to deeper blue hues, and his usual melodic speech would become more formal. "Yilneth, I've been walking these maintenance tunnels since I first arrived at this station 2 years ago," Dae-ho said with confidence. "The smugglers and pirates stick to the outer rings where the cargo ships dock. Down here it's just old machinery and forgotten storage units. Besides, we'll save 40 minutes taking this shortcut to the transport bay." The Velnari's form flickered with uncertainty patterns, but the intelligence reports mentioned increased pirate activity near the station. The Korthak clan has been particularly aggressive lately, targeting diplomatic vessels and high-value passengers. "Those reports are about ships in open space, not inside the station itself," Dae-ho replied, though his trained military instincts kept his senses alert. Station security would never allow pirates to operate inside Kepler Station, too much trade money at stake. As they rounded a corner, where a massive atmospheric processor created a curtain of steam, Dae-ho couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The usual background noise of the station, the hum of engines, the chatter of distant conversations, the mechanical sounds of automated systems, seemed muted here. Even the air felt different, charged with an energy that made his skin prickle. The attack came like lightning from a clear sky. 6 figures emerged from concealed positions behind support beams and maintenance equipment, their movements coordinated and deadly. Korthak pirates, their reptilian features scarred by years of violence, surrounded the pair with military precision. Their plasma rifles glowed with deadly energy, each weapon capable of vaporizing a human-sized target in seconds. The leader stepped forward, his face a map of old battles. Cybernetic implants replaced his left eye and most of his jaw, giving him a mechanical appearance that was both fascinating and terrifying. When he spoke, his voice was a grinding mixture of organic vocal cords and electronic processors. Well, what do we have here?" The pirate captain's artificial eye focused on Yilneth with predatory interest. A genuine Velnari crystal singer, far from the safety of his precious garden world. Yilneth's bioluminescent patterns shifted to rapid flashes of fear, a display any species in the galaxy would recognize as pure terror. His delicate form began to tremble, creating tiny musical notes as his crystalline structure vibrated. "The crystal bug will fetch a fine price in the slave markets of Rigel Prime," the captain continued, his weapon never wavering. "Velnari make excellent decorative pets for wealthy collectors. So fragile, so beautiful, so helpless." Without hesitation, Dae-ho stepped directly between the pirates and his friend. His movement was fluid and natural, the kind of protective instinct that had made humans legendary throughout the galaxy. Every other species calculated risk and reward before acting. Humans simply acted when their loved ones were threatened. "You want him?" Dae-ho's voice carried the quiet confidence of a predator defending its territory. "You'll have to go through me first," the pirate captain laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "1 human against 6 armed Korthak warriors? Your species may be tough, but you're not immortal, Deathworlder." Maybe not immortal, Day-Ho replied, his hand moving slowly toward his weapon, but tough enough. The plasma bolt was meant for Yilneth. The pirate captain had decided to eliminate the human quickly and claim his prize. But as the superheated energy discharged from his rifle, Day-Ho threw himself sideways with inhuman speed, intercepting the blast meant for his friend. The plasma bolt struck him across his entire left torso, instantly vaporizing his uniform and burning through skin, muscle, and bone. The smell of charred flesh filled the air as Day-Ho's scream echoed through the corridor. Any other species in the galaxy would have died instantly from such a wound. Day-Ho staggered, smoke rising from the massive burn that had destroyed half. His chest. His left arm hung useless, nerve endings severed by the plasma's heat. Blood flowed freely from wounds that should have been immediately fatal. Then he raised his pulse pistol with his right hand and began to return fire. "Impossible," the pirate captain whispered, his cybernetic eye widening in disbelief. The medical emergency alarm echoed through the metal corridors of Kepler Station as a team of alien medics rushed toward the lower levels. Their anti-gravity stretchers hummed through the air, carrying advanced medical equipment that could heal most species in the galaxy. But as they arrived at the scene of the firefight, even the most experienced doctors stopped in shock. Lieutenant Kim Day-Ho sat propped against a wall, his entire left side a mess of charred flesh and exposed bone. Plasma burns had melted through. His ribs and internal organs were clearly visible through the massive wound. 6 dead Korthak pirates lay scattered around him, their bodies testimony to the human's deadly accuracy even while mortally wounded. Yilneth hovered nearby, his crystalline form pulsing with frantic patterns of distress. The Velnari had never seen so much blood, and the sight of his best friend's injuries made his delicate structure vibrate with grief, songs that filled the corridor with haunting melodies. Dr. Park Min-seo, the station's chief medical officer, knelt beside Day-Ho with her portable medical scanner. The device was designed to read the vital signs of over 300 different species, but the readings it displayed made no sense. According to every medical database in the galaxy, the human sitting before her should have been dead 20 minutes ago. "Lieutenant Kim," Dr. Park said, her voice filled with professional concern mixed with genuine amazement, "I need you to listen to me very carefully. Your left lung has collapsed completely. 3 ribs have been vaporized by the plasma blast. Your liver is damaged, your kidney is barely functioning, and I can see your heart struggling to pump blood through damaged vessels." Day-Ho looked down at his ruined torso with the calm acceptance that had made humans both famous and feared throughout the galaxy. "Doc, I can feel all of that, trust me. But I'm still breathing, still talking, and still thinking clearly. So tell me straight, how long do I have?" The medical scanner beeped frantically as Dr. Park ran it across his body again, hoping the readings were wrong. Around them, other medical staff, a blue-skinned Andorian nurse, a multi-tentacled Zephilian surgeon, and 2 robotic medical assistants, worked to clear the scene and tend to minor injuries Yilneth had sustained during the attack. "Any other species would have died instantly from these injuries," Dr. Park said, shaking her head in disbelief. "Your human physiology is keeping you alive through sheer, stubborn determination, but without immediate surgery, without replacement, organs grown in our biotanks, without at least 48 hours of intensive care." "How long?" Day-Ho repeated, his grip on consciousness never wavering despite the massive trauma to his body. Dr. Park looked at her readings one more time, cross-checking them with the station's main medical computer. The answer came back the same every TE. "Time impossible but undeniable. Perhaps a week, maybe 8 days if you rest completely and let us manage your pain. But Lieutenant, we need to get you into emergency surgery immediately. Our bioregeneration tanks can regrow damaged tissue. Our surgical robots can replace destroyed organs with synthetic ones. We can save your life, but only if we act now." Day-Ho's hand shot out with surprising speed, gripping Dr. Park's wrist with strength that made her gasp. For a dying man, his grip felt like a steel clamp. His eyes, though clouded with pain, burned with the fierce determination that had carried humanity from a single world to the stars. "Doctor, listen carefully. I don't want surgery. I don't want your biotanks or synthetic organs. I want you to stabilize me for space travel. Give me whatever drugs you need to keep me conscious and mobile for the next week. Nothing more." The medical team exchanged shocked glances. In all their years of practice across dozens of worlds, they had never encountered a patient who refused life-saving treatment. Dr. Park's scanner showed that Daeho's brain activity was completely normal. He wasn't delirious or suffering from shock-induced confusion. He was making this decision with full awareness of what it meant. "Lieutenant, you're asking me to help you commit suicide," Dr. Park said softly. Before Daeho could respond, Yilneth's crystalline form suddenly blazed with angry red patterns. The gentle Velnari, who had never raised his voice in the 3 years Daeho had known him, sang out in harmonics that made every being in the corridor stop and listen. "Daeho, please. I beg you to reconsider. Let them heal you. I cannot bear to lose my dearest friend because of my weakness. If I had been stronger, if I had been able to defend myself, you would not be hurt. Please don't leave me alone in this galaxy." Daeho turned toward his alien companion, and despite the pain that should have rendered him unconscious, his voice remained steady and warm. "Yilneth, do you remember all those stories I told you during our long shifts together? The ones about my family's farm back on Earth, about the winter celebrations when snow covers the ground and families gather together?" Yilneth's distress patterns flickered with confusion. "Yes, you spoke of Christmas many times. The lights, the gifts, the way your grandmother cooks for days preparing special foods. But what does that matter now when you're dying?" I promised. "You something, remember? 6 months ago when you told me that Velnari don't have family gatherings because your people live alone once they reach maturity. I promised I would take you to Earth for Christmas. I promised I would show you what it means to belong somewhere, to be part of something bigger than yourself." The medical team watched in fascination as the dying human spoke with passion that seemed to energize him despite his terrible injuries. Dr. Park's scanner showed his heart rate actually stabilizing as he talked about his promise. "A human keeps his promises, Yilneth, even dying ones, especially dying ones." Dr. Park stared at Daeho with a mixture of professional frustration and genuine awe. "Lieutenant, you're telling me that you're willing to die just to show your friend a holiday celebration? That makes no sense by any logical standard." Daeho smiled weakly, but his eyes never lost their intensity. "Doctor, you've probably studied human psychology as part of your xenobiology training. So tell me, what do humans value more than their own lives?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Dr. Park thought about everything she knew about human behavior, their history, their reputation throughout the galaxy, as the species that would charge into impossible battles and sacrifice everything for abstract concepts like honor and friendship. "Love," she whispered finally. "Humans will die for love." "Exactly," Daeho said softly. "I'm not willing to die for a holiday celebration, Doctor. I'm willing to die to show my friend what love looks like." The sleek personal transport ship Soul's Light launched from Kepler Station's docking bay with a roar of fusion engines that echoed through the metal corridors. Inside the cockpit, Lieutenant Kim Dae-ho's hands moved across the control panels with practiced precision, even though his left arm hung completely useless at his side. The plasma wound had destroyed most of his left shoulder and chest, leaving dark burns that spread like spider webs across his pale skin. The ship's medical bay had been converted into a makeshift treatment center filled with portable life support, equipment that Dr. Park Min-seo had insisted on providing. Tubes and wires connected to various machines kept pumping stimulants and painkillers into Daeho's bloodstream, but everyone aboard knew these measures were just buying time. Lee So-young appeared as a shimmering blue hologram beside the pilot's seat. Her worried face transmitted from the passenger compartment where she sat monitoring her brother's vital signs. As a fellow pilot and engineer, So-young had flown out from Earth the moment she received word of the attack. Now she watched helplessly as her older brother slowly died while flying them home. "Daeho, your heart rhythm is becoming more irregular," she said, her voice tight with concern. "The medical computers are showing dangerous fluctuations in your blood pressure. Please let me take over the controls. You need to rest." Daeho shook his head slightly, never taking his eyes off the navigation display. "I've got this handled." "So young. The hyperspace calculations are already locked in. Just focus on keeping Yilneth comfortable back there. Through the cockpit's reinforced windows, the stars stretched into long lines of light as the Soul's light jumped into hyperspace. The ship's quantum drive hummed with power, folding space-time around them to cross impossible distances in mere days instead of centuries. But even this miracle of human engineering couldn't heal the dying man at the controls. In the passenger compartment, Yilneth floated near one of the viewing ports, his crystalline body reflecting the swirling colors of hyperspace in beautiful patterns. The Velnari had never traveled at faster-than-light speeds before, and under normal circumstances, he would have been amazed by the experience. Instead, his attention remained focused on his human friend, watching in fascination and horror as Deho continued to function despite injuries that should have killed him hours ago. "How is this possible?" Yilneth whispered to So-Young, his voice creating soft musical tones that filled the cabin. "According to every medical database in the galaxy, your brother should not be conscious. The trauma to his nervous system alone should have rendered him comatose." So-Young wiped tears from her eyes as she monitored the life support readings. "You have to understand something about humans, Yilneth. We don't quit when something matters to us, and you matter to him more than his own life." The ship suddenly shuddered as they dropped out of hyperspace near a navigation beacon. Through the intercom, they could hear Deho's labored breathing as he manually adjusted their course for the next jump. His voice, though weak, remained steady and focused. "Jump," sequence initiated. "Next waypoint in 30 seconds, everyone hold on." As the Soul's light leaped back into hyperspace, Yilneth noticed something that amazed him even more than human stubbornness. Dark veins were spreading across Deho's visible skin like poison, and his breathing had become shallow and irregular. Yet his hands never trembled on the controls. His calculations remained perfect. His timing was flawless. "This defies everything I know about biology," Yilneth said in wonder. "His body is clearly shutting down, but his mind remains sharp. How do humans compartmentalize physical trauma like this?" So-Young smiled sadly. "We call it determination. When a human decides something is important enough, we can push our bodies far beyond what should be possible. Mothers lift crashed vehicles to save their children. Soldiers fight for hours with mortal wounds to protect their comrades. Athletes break records while injured. It's not magic, it's just who we are." During the long hours of hyperspace travel, Deho began sharing stories with Yilneth over the ship's communication system. His voice grew weaker with each passing hour, but his memories remained vivid and warm. "I remember Christmas morning when I was 7 years old," Deho said, his words slightly slurred by the pain medication. "My grandmother Kim Hae-won had been cooking for 3 days straight, preparing traditional Korean dishes alongside Christmas cookies and roasted turkey. The whole house smelled like cinnamon and garlic and love." Yilneth listened intently, his crystalline form pulsing with soft colors that indicated deep concentration. "Tell me more about your grandmother. Velnari elders live alone, but humans seem to cherish their elderly family members. Grandmother Hae-won is the heart of our family," Deho continued, pausing occasionally to catch his breath. "She's 86 years old now, but she still insists on making kimchi from scratch and hand-rolling dumplings for special occasions. When we were children, my grandfather Lee Dong-min would sit by the fireplace reading us old Korean folk tales, while she worked in the kitchen, humming traditional songs." The ship's medical alarms began beeping more frequently as Deho's condition worsened. So-Young frantically adjusted medication levels, trying to keep her brother conscious without overdosing him. In the background they could hear his continued storytelling, each word a struggle but filled with warmth. "Christmas isn't about the gifts, Yilneth. It's not about the decorations or the special food or even the religious significance. It's about belonging somewhere, being loved unconditionally by people who choose to call you family. I want you to feel that before—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Everyone aboard the Soul's Light understood that this journey home might be Deho's final gift to his alien friend. The Soul's Light descended through Earth's atmosphere on Christmas Eve, its hull glowing red-hot from atmospheric entry. Snow was falling heavily across the Korean countryside as the ship's landing thrusters fired, creating clouds of steam where the hot exhaust met the frozen ground. The Kim family farm stretched out below them, a collection of traditional buildings surrounded by terraced fields, now covered in pristine white snow. Daeho had collapsed during the final approach, his body finally giving in to the massive trauma it had endured. So-young took over the landing controls, while medical robots from the ship's emergency bay worked frantically to stabilize her brother. By the time the landing ramp lowered, Daeho was unconscious, his breathing shallow and irregular. Kim Hae-won stood waiting in the farmyard, her small figure bundled in a thick winter coat. At 86 years old, she had weathered many storms and seen much sorrow, but the sight of her grandson being carried from the ship on an anti-gravity stretcher brought tears to her weathered face. The portable life support systems around him beeped constantly, their alien technology keeping him alive through sheer mechanical determination. Behind Daeho's stretcher floated Yilneth, his crystalline form dim with grief and uncertainty. The Velnari had never seen snow before, and the sight of millions of white flakes drifting from the dark sky would have been magical under different circumstances. Instead, he felt lost and afraid, surrounded by an alien world while his best friend lay dying. Kim Hae-won took one look at her grandson's condition, then at the strange crystalline being hovering nearby. Without hesitation, she walked directly to Yilneth and gently placed her small wrinkled hands on his smooth surface. The touch was warm and comforting, filled with the kind of unconditional acceptance that had made her the heart of the Kim family for decades. "Any friend of Daeho's is family," she said simply, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had made this farmhouse a home for countless people over the years. Yilneth's form flickered with surprised patterns of light. In all his travels across the galaxy, no alien species had ever touched him so casually or offered acceptance so immediately. Most beings were afraid of the Velnari, unsure how to interact with a living crystal, but this elderly human woman treated him as if he were just another grandchild coming home for the holidays. The farmhouse quickly filled with relatives who had been waiting for Daeho's arrival. Park Ji-hoon arrived with his 3 young children, their excited chatter filling the halls until they saw the medical equipment surrounding their beloved uncle. Choi Min-ho and his wife Kim Yoo-jin brought armloads of presents and traditional foods, their faces falling when they realized how serious Daeho's condition had become. But something remarkable happened as more family members arrived. Lee Tae-min, Daeho's cousin and a military medic, immediately began coordinating with the ship's medical systems to make Daeho as comfortable as possible. Park Soo-jin, who worked as a nurse in Seoul, helped transfer him to a specially prepared room where he could rest while still remaining part of the family gathering. None of them questioned Yilneth's presence. Instead, they included the crystalline being in every tradition as naturally as breathing. Young Lee Subin, barely 8 years old, approached Yilneth with the fearless curiosity that only children possess. "Are you Uncle Daeho's friend from space?" she asked, her eyes wide with wonder. "Yes, little one," Yilneth replied, his voice creating tiny bell-like sounds that made Subin giggle with delight. "Do you want to help me decorate the Christmas tree? Uncle Daeho always helps, but this year—" She looked toward the room where Daeho rested, her young face showing wisdom beyond her years. For the next several hours, Yilneth experienced something no Velnari had ever known, the warmth of being part of a human family. Zubin showed him how to hang delicate glass ornaments on the massive pine tree that dominated the living room, each decoration carrying memories and stories from previous Christmases. Kim Nam-joon, Daeho's older brother and a music teacher, sat at the family's old piano and began playing traditional Korean Christmas carols. The melodies had been adapted over generations, blending Western Christmas songs with Korean folk music to create something uniquely beautiful. Nam-joon patiently taught Yilneth how his crystalline structure could create harmonious tones that complemented the piano, turning the alien's natural voice into part of the family's musical tradition. Park Yoon-ji, So-young's daughter and a university student studying xenobiology, was fascinated by Yilneth's ability to change colors based on his emotions. She helped him wrap presents for the younger children, explaining the human tradition of giving gifts to show love and appreciation. Yilneth's precise crystalline manipulators made him surprisingly good at folding wrapping paper and tying ribbons, much to everyone's delight. As the evening progressed, medical staff worked quietly to move Dae-ho to a wheelchair where he could participate in the family gathering. Powerful stimulants and pain blockers kept him conscious, though everyone could see how much effort it cost him to remain alert. His face was pale and drawn, dark circles under his eyes, but his smile was genuine as he watched his family welcome his alien friend. The moment that would stay with Yilneth forever came when the family gathered around the Christmas tree for the traditional placement of the star at the top. This honor usually went to the youngest child, but little Subin looked at Yilneth with solemn eyes. "I think, Uncle, Dae-ho's space friend should put the star up this year," she announced with the serious tone children use for important decisions. The entire family agreed immediately. Using his natural ability to float, Yilneth carefully lifted the golden star and placed it at the very top of the tree. As he did, his crystalline form began to glow with the most beautiful patterns any of them had ever seen, colors that represented joy, gratitude, and belonging in the ancient language of his people. From his wheelchair, Dae-ho watched with deep satisfaction as his alien friend experienced human warmth for the first time. The effort of staying conscious was enormous, but seeing Yilneth's wonder and happiness made every moment of pain worthwhile. "Do you understand now?" Dae-ho whispered, his voice barely audible above the family's gentle conversations. Yilneth floated down to hover beside his friend's wheelchair, his entire being pulsing with colors that expressed emotions too deep for words. "I understand that humans don't just survive impossible things, Dae-ho. You create impossible things, like making an alien feel at home in a place he's never been, with people he's never met." The snow continued to fall outside as Christmas Eve deepened into night, but inside the Kim family farmhouse, warmth and love made everything possible. Christmas morning arrived with brilliant sunlight reflecting off the fresh snow that had fallen. During the night, the Kim family farmhouse buzzed with excitement as children's laughter echoed through the halls, and the smell of Kim Hae-won's traditional breakfast filled every room. Despite the joy of the holiday, everyone moved a little more quietly than usual, aware that this might be Dae-ho's last Christmas with them. The living room overflowed with wrapped presents of every size and color, stacked beneath the magnificent tree that Yilneth had helped decorate the night before. But as the family gathered for the traditional gift exchange, the most precious present wasn't wrapped in bright paper or tied with fancy ribbons. Lee Dong-min, Dae-ho's grandfather, approached Yilneth with trembling hands that showed his advanced age. At 91 years old, he had spent decades working with wood, crafting furniture and decorative items for his family. His latest creation was small but perfect, a hand-carved Christmas ornament made from Korean pine, polished to a warm, golden color that seemed to glow in the morning light. "I worked on this all night," Dong-min said softly, his voice filled with the quiet pride of a craftsman. "I wanted to make sure it was ready for this morning." Yilneth's crystalline form pulsed with curious patterns as he examined the ornament. Carved into the smooth wood were two sets of characters, his name written in flowing Korean script on one side, and on the other, the same name rendered in the complex geometric patterns of ancient Velnari writing. The old man had somehow learned enough about Yilneth's language to recreate the symbols perfectly. "How did you know how to write in Velnari?" Yilneth asked, his voice creating soft, musical tones of amazement. Dong-min smiled, his weathered face creasing with warmth. "I asked So Young to look it up on the Galactic database last night. If you're going to be part of this family, your name should be written properly in both our languages." Kim Hae-won stepped forward, her small hands gently taking the ornament from her husband. "Your family now, Yilneth," she said with the same simple certainty she had shown when first welcoming him. "This ornament will hang on our tree every Christmas for as long as this house stands. This will always be your place." As Hae-won helped Yilneth hang the ornament on a prominent branch, the entire family watched in respectful silence. Even the youngest children understood they were witnessing something important, the formal adoption of an alien being into their human family circle. From his wheelchair nearby, Dae-ho watched the ceremony with growing satisfaction. The effort of staying conscious was enormous, requiring constant injections of stimulants that made his heart race dangerously. But seeing his family embrace Yilneth so completely gave him strength he didn't know he still possessed. "Yilneth," Deho called softly, his voice barely audible above the gentle conversations around them. "Come here, my friend. I have something important to give you." With great effort, Deho reached into a pocket of his medical robe and withdrew a sealed document case made of titanium alloy, the kind used for official galactic legal papers. His hand shook as he held it out, the simple action requiring all his remaining strength. "Legal papers," he whispered, each word a struggle. "Earth citizenship, full residency rights, and—" he paused, breathing heavily. "My inheritance. The farm, my savings, everything. You'll never be alone, Yilneth. You'll always have a home." Yilneth's crystalline structure began to vibrate with emotional harmonies that filled the room with the most beautiful music any of them had ever heard. The sounds expressed gratitude, love, and grief all at once, emotions so deep that the Velnari language had no words for them, only music. "Deho, I cannot accept such gifts," Yilneth protested. "Your family should inherit these things, not an alien stranger." "You're not a stranger," interrupted Park Ji-hoon, speaking for the entire family. "Deho chose you as his brother. That makes you our brother too. Family takes care of family." As Christmas Day progressed, Deho's condition steadily worsened. The medical equipment around him worked frantically to keep his failing organs functioning, but everyone could see that human determination had its limits. By evening, even the powerful stimulants couldn't keep him fully alert. The family gathered around his bedside as the sun began to set, painting the snow-covered landscape outside in shades of gold and pink. Children sat quietly on the floor, while adults formed a protective circle around their beloved Deho. Medical monitors beeped softly in the background, tracking a heartbeat that grew weaker with each passing minute. Yilneth floated beside the bed, his crystalline form dim with grief. Throughout the galaxy, he had heard stories of human stubbornness and their refusal to accept defeat. But witnessing it firsthand, seeing how Deho had literally willed himself to stay alive long enough to bring his friend home, was something that would change Yilneth forever. "Promise me," Deho whispered, his eyes still bright despite his failing body. "Promise me you'll come back every Christmas. Promise me you'll remember what you learned here about what it means to belong somewhere." "Promise, my dearest friend," Yilneth replied, his voice creating gentle tones that seemed to ease Deho's pain. "I will return every year. I will remember everything you've shown me. I will carry your gift to other lonely beings across the galaxy." Deho smiled one last time, the expression lighting up his pale face with genuine happiness. "Then I kept my promise too. I showed you what love looks like." As Lieutenant Kim Deho passed away surrounded by his family, Yilneth gently held his friend's hand and finally understood the true power of humanity. It wasn't their ability to survive lethal wounds that made them legendary across the galaxy. It wasn't their stubborn refusal to accept defeat or their talent for turning hopeless situations into victories. The real power of humanity was their capacity to love so deeply that death itself became secondary to keeping a promise to a friend. They could create family from friendship, turn strangers into brothers, and make the impossible seem natural through simple acceptance and unconditional care. In the years that followed, Yilneth became the galaxy's unofficial ambassador of human compassion. He traveled to distant worlds, sharing the story of Christmas and the lesson of belonging with other lonely beings. Alien species who had never understood human behavior began to see them in a new light, not as dangerous Deathworlders, but as beings capable of infinite love. But every Christmas, without fail, Yilneth returned to the Kim family farm. He helped decorate the tree, sang carols with the children, and shared stories of his travels with new generations of the family. His ornament hung in the place of honor, right beside the star at the top of the tree, a permanent reminder that love transcends species and friendship conquers even death. The soul's light remained parked in the farmyard, maintained by the family as a memorial to Deho's final journey. Sometimes on quiet Christmas nights, Yilneth would sit inside the ship and remember his friend's voice telling stories of home and family. The memories never faded, and neither did the promise that bound him to this place where an alien had learned what it truly means to belong. The end.